So because of this is what perception is. And you can see here that this perception is basically, our entire worldview is built up of perceptions, how we look at things. And because of that, it becomes a very useful ground for spiritual development. Now, some of these perceptions are much more important from a Buddhist point of view. And one such perception is the perception of impermanence. This is a very important one. Now we're moving into the area of Buddhist perceptions. Now the perception of impermanence is always with us to some extent. We can see how the world is always changing. We can see how we are changing. But sometimes we need to remind ourselves of this perception of impermanence. We need to actually reflect on it. We need to contemplate it. And only when we contemplate this kind of perception does it actually lead to spiritual growth for ourselves. This is actually very important, and it is very important because despite the obvious fact that things are impermanent, we tend not to see this, we tend to forget it. So how do we contemplate impermanence? This is a very foundational contemplation in Buddhist teachings, contemplation of impermanence. When you read the suttas, you see it in place after place. You see the Buddha says you should contemplate impermanence because it leads to spiritual growth. And of course, a very obvious way of talking about impermanence is to remember that everything that you have in this world that is dear and pleasing to you, things like your personal possessions, for example, are impermanent. One day you're going to have to lose these things. One day they will go. And sometimes they go when you least expect it. And certainly when you die, these things will have to disappear from you. So that is one very basic and very, very simple way of reminding yourself of impermanence, that your possessions, all you have in this life, will change, will become otherwise. Another way of looking at it is to think about your relationships, your friends and even your family. All of these things, again, are impermanent. They will change, they will become otherwise. Your physical body is eventually going to die, is eventually going to disappear. Again, it is not something you can hold on to. It is impermanent, it will change. And this is a foundational perception in Buddhism. It is a very powerful perception. It means, if you understand how it works, it actually means that you start to let go of things in the world. You let go because you understand you cannot hold on to these things. These things actually are impermanent. It's not up to you whether these things are going to stay or not. They will eventually have to disappear. And the more you understand that, the deeper it sinks into your consciousness, the more you will tend to let go of things outside of you, including also your own body. And of course, people often ask, well, how do we let go in meditation practice? I want to let go, I want to be able to enter some deep states of samadhi, I want to have peace and bliss and all these kind of things. And this is how you let go. You let go by understanding the reality of things. And the deeper you understand the reality, the more you can let go of the world outside. But like all things, it's not just a matter of doing things once and trying to sort of hit the trigger of impermanence and then having let go forever after. This is a development. All of these things have to be developed. And so it is with the perception of impermanence. You have to develop it. You have to reflect on it again and again and again until it becomes like a spiritual power inside of you. Something you can turn on particularly when you meditate, and you will find that when you hit the right trigger and it actually works, it makes you very, very peaceful because it helps you to let go. That's why it is so powerful. And even if you can do just that much, if it can help you to let go of all the physical things in the world, then you're already doing extremely well in your practice as somebody practicing the spiritual life, because this will be very, very beneficial for your meditation practice. Of course, the idea of contemplating impermanence goes much deeper than that. This may sound difficult enough to sort of let go of your body and let go of all the physical things around you. It may sound hard enough, but of course it goes much, much deeper than that, because Buddhism is an extraordinarily profound teaching and profound spiritual practice. And it goes to the point where actually all these mental content that I was talking about before, the feelings, the perceptions, the will and even the consciousness, even these things are eventually, ultimately seen as impermanent, something that you have to let go of, something you cannot hold on to. But that is a very, very deep practice. And if you can start off with just the physical things of the world, you're already doing extremely, extremely well. So this is one example of a Buddhist development of perception. And when you read the Suttas of the Buddha, you find that there are so many types of perceptions that you can develop, so many things. He talks about it again and again. And another classic example is the breath, for example, breath meditation. Breath meditation is really just a development of perception. You are developing the watching of the breath, and as you watch the breath starts to change, and that changing of the breath is actually itself a development of perception as you practice the breath meditation. The Buddha talks about some very profound development of perception, like the development, the perception of cessation, the ending of things. And of course here we're talking about things such as understanding the nature of Nibbana, the ending of the ordinary things of the world. Very, very profound things. So these perceptions are things, the development of perception is something that you take with you from the very beginning of the path all the way to the very end, to actually the attainment of Nibbana itself. But I want to talk more about the basic perceptions, the ones that are really important in life, the ones that are going to make a difference for you in your daily life, the ones that are going to make a difference in your practice of meditation. And one place to look for these basic types of perception that we need to develop is to look at the very beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path. Now the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is right intention, and right intention is divided into the intention of renunciation, but more importantly, the intention of non-harming, which is the same as the intention of compassion, and the intention of non-ill will, which is the same as the intention of metta, of loving kindness. So this is the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, intention of loving kindness and intention of compassion. How can you have the intention of compassion in your life? And the answer is the only way that you can have the intention of compassion. Now, a real intention of compassion has to come from the heart. The only way you can really have an intention of compassion is you must really feel a sense of compassion inside of you. If you try to meditate and you say, oh, may all beings be happy and well, you have to mean it. It has to come from inside of you, from deep inside of you. You really have to mean this. If you don't mean it, it's not going to work. So you have to find a skillful means by which you can mean these things. It has to really come from the heart.